Anyway, Barbara, I wanted to get right to this. I don't find this, and I've looked at a lot of aspects of this case, and I've been to a lot of these type of cases where you can't explain really exactly what happened. And that's when you need the science of death to come in and say, okay, we know what it is. We know what it is because, and I just want to put one of the things the detectives do is, of course, response to the scene. And that is so important. The first person that observed Betsy Arakawa's body, that was important. What position was the body in? What room was she in? What else was in the room? They reported that there was medicine, or one of a pill bottle tipped over. What were those medicines? All of those things are very important. And the other thing is that we don't rely on the detective's memory. We memorialize that with video and or still photos so that there's no guessing. The other part of this is that they find Mr. Hackman, Gene Hackman's body, in another part of the house, which is described as the mudroom. Now, there's certain death investigators out there. The most famous one, Dr. Michael Baden, who's as old as the Bible. I'm going to get hate mail for that one. But he's an old guy. He's been around for a long time. And he came up with a certain prediction, which sounds plausible, that Mr. Hackman died of a cardiac arrest. And the time frame for that, of course, was his pacemaker, which quit on the 17th. And I don't know if there's exactly an hour, time, and minute to that inside the pacemaker. But his prediction is that he died first, and perhaps Betsy Arakawa ran to get him some type of medication in an attempt to maybe save his life. Your thoughts, Paul?
Well, there's a whole lot in there to unpack. Our first issue with this particular case is time of death. The decomposition of bodies, we all know, makes it very difficult to determine when someone died. And when we have that particular kind of atmosphere that they have in Santa Fe, it's very cool, average temperature 50, very dry, humidity is always lower than 20%. And so we get not only the decomposition, primarily in the abdominal area where all our bacteria live, but then comes the mummification, drying, and that would happen in less moist areas of the body where there's less fat to hold water, like the hands, the feet, the face. So it's difficult, but then fortunately we have Mr. Hackman's pacemaker, which can be read with an electronic device, telemetry. And that tells us that there was cessation of cardiac activity on, I believe it was the 17th. So meaning he was found 9 days after his final cardiac event. I don't know if that was an infarct, an arrhythmia, what it could have been. However, that gives us a very good, I mean, it's golden to me, that kind of data. But then comes the problem of his wife's death. She too had some decomposition and some degree of mummification. Now, it seems like...
Barbara, can I just stop you right there for 1 second? Sure. Everyone is freaking out over that word mummification, as if we went immediate to Egypt and to the pyramids, you know, and I think that's what is, we need someone like you to explain what mummification means in this situation.
Sure. Mummification is very simple. It just means the drying of tissues. You know, people who have severe arterial disease, like diabetics, who might get, you know, a sore on their foot, and then there's an infection because they don't have sufficient blood supply to bring the body's immune responses. And that foot, as it dies, will dry, and it becomes actually mummified. Now, the rest of them is just fine, you know, within the health limits, but their foot is actually mummified. It dries out. And does it look like an Egyptian mummy? No, of course not. That's complete and purposeful mummification. When we use the term in the medical examiner's office or in a forensic death investigation, we're just talking about the drying of tissues, which indicates that the person was dead for some time in a certain kind of atmosphere. For instance, in the summer on Long Island, if we were to come across a body that had very little decomposition, but a lot of mummification, as in the whole body being dried up and leathery, that would tell me that that person died somewhere else in a different kind of climate, and the body was dumped there. So it doesn't mean, a horror kind of thing or an Egyptian mummy, just drying of tissues.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm glad you could clear that up because many people, and look, not just many civilians and citizens, but the media is losing their shit over that word. They just really, they heard mummification. They were like ready to call the pharaohs in. It was just a little bit crazy. No, I'm serious. It was a little bit crazy the way that they reacted to that word. And I think there's also a different, many levels of decomposition, right?
Sure.
That you have rigor mortis, alga mortis, liver mortis, and then there's there something called putrefaction, right? Which is a deep state of decomposition. But most people never hear the term with decomposition, with mummification. And that's what I think. Anyway, I don't want to spend that much time on that. I covered it very well.